So the Hugo Ekitike saga looks to be over, for now at least, and we are being told that Newcastle have already moved on to yet another transfer target in the striking department. Hugo Ekitike becomes Yoane Wissa. So let's take a closer look at the player and how different he maybe is to other players Howe's targeted already in this window. It's all coming up, Newcastle fans, so do us a favour and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to Black White Banter, ladies and gentlemen, and my God, once again on another video, let's just take a big breath in and a big breath out, because this transfer window feels one of the most exhausting of my lifetime, and we're only in mid-July. Now look, the Liverpool-Newcastle saga continues on social media, and if it keeps building like it is, I wouldn't be surprised if that match, our first home game in the Premier League, feels more like a derby. You can call Liverpool's tactics in all of the drama of the last couple of days a power play all you want. Did Liverpool want Alexander Isak? Yes. Have they got him? No. Did I ideally want Hugo Ekitike to come in with Isak? Yes, and I won't deny that. But we are currently sitting here now in a situation where we've kept our main asset, one of the best strikers in the world. Liverpool are now having to pay what looks like slightly more for a second choice option that we won't miss too much because we've never had him. Right, let's move on. But before we move on to the newest target, Newcastle fans, do me a favour. Get down, get Black White Banter across all social media. Hit that subscribe button now, because there's going to be plenty more videos to come before I head down to Celtic on Saturday and then jet off to Singapore and South Korea, where I'm going to document the whole trip from start to finish and everything that goes on in between. And if it's anything like Japan, it'll be an interesting, there'll be some interesting videos coming, to say the least. So do that now. But yes, Hugo Ekitike as our transfer option target that was once João Pedro, that maybe once was Brian Mbeumo, is now Mr. Yoane Wissa, after the news has broke that Newcastle have apparently walked away from the Ekitike deal, particularly with Liverpool sniffing around. So let's talk about the Brentford striker in a bit more detail. Look, from the outset, glancing over this with a magnifying glass, I would probably say that Yoane Wissa, without stating the obvious, looks every bit a third or fourth choice striker. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to the quality of the player, by no means, and we'll touch on that in a second and what he could bring to Newcastle United, more so in the profile of the player. He's about to turn in September 29 years old. No one is going to tell me, although we've had a quiet few transfer windows now, that suits what Eddie Howe and what this project have been looking for in recent years. Lewis Hall, Tino Livramento, Sandro Tonali, Alexander Isak, Sven Botman, just to name a few, Anthony Elanga, the newest recruit, all are much, much younger in age with a lot more potential to grow and grow and grow and spend anywhere from 7 to 10 years at this football club. Yoane Wissa would be one of our oldest signings for a while now, dating back a little bit further to when Eddie Howe first came into the football club. So this does smell every bit a third or fourth choice. But that being said, what could this player bring to Newcastle United? Look, again, to that naked eye, the numbers for Mr. Yoane Wissa are pretty good for Brentford. 12 goals and 4 assists in the 23-24 season, and then he went one better last season when Brentford were really catching the eye, but Mbeumo was stealing all of the plaudits, a lot of people would argue, with 19 goals and 5 assists. Those are good returns, and those are also a player who has improved season upon season. But it's that partnership with Mbeumo that I find quite interesting, because in all of this, we are going to be asking ourselves, how much will this guy play with Alexander Isak? Will he be just back up off the bench, or will Eddie Howe find a way of building him in? Now, I think with the other targets we've gone after, the Ekitikes, the Pedros, that is what Eddie Howe wants. Someone who can play with Isak, depending on adapting the tactics, depending on the opposition. So let's look at that partnership a little bit closer between the two of them. And Mbeumo and Wissa last season were at one point only second to a certain Jacob Murphy and Alexander Isak for Premier League passes between them that led to chances. These two were a deadly duo. And look, wasn't Mbeumo our top target? Yes, I would maybe argue he was, although that was never really proved in the media. Just all of the talk that we know so ever present with journalists and in the nose on Twitter. But that one is by the by. But those two were so deadly, and Wissa's role in that could not be underestimated. The guy was banging goals in for fun, and he was also helping out his teammate in doing so. But going back to what I said about a third or fourth choice striker, why is this one a little bit more unusual than the other targets? Well, it seems to me that Eddie Howe wants a versatile player, someone who can play with Isak, and by doing so maybe be able to play on the left just behind him, and that opens up the door for Eddie Howe to play many more different formations against different opposition in 4 competitions. But Wissa, compared to other targets, is much more of a traditional striker. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't play off the left-hand side, and we'll touch on a couple of reasons why he can soon. But if I look at his last 50 appearances in terms of where he has strictly started the match, that's not to say he doesn't drift during games. You are talking about only 4 appearances of the last 50 playing on the left-hand side. And I'm going to put on the screen his heat map for you to take a look at as well. And that just highlights how much of a central striker this player really is. And look, you might be thinking, heat map, does that really tell much of a story? Well, I'm going to put also on the screen where his goals came from last season. All of them inside the box. I would say he's a bit of a fox in the box, but I think the better term would be a bee. Get it, Brentford? Bees? I'll put the cricket sound effect over this bit now. But what would I argue are some of his other strengths that I think could make this player suited to a Newcastle team? Well, I'm going to put on the screen his sprints, and look who he's just behind. A certain Anthony Elanga. And if I was to ask any Newcastle fan watching this video what you thought one of Anthony Elanga's main strengths was, it would be his progressive carrying and his sprints up the pitch. Wissa is not too unfamiliar with driving that ball into space, driving that ball out, and that could help Newcastle. That could really help with Newcastle. And yes, you're going to tell me that Alexander Isak has that in his locker as well, but with a player like Wissa able to use both feet and drift a little bit but drive that ball, it's never a bad thing to have, and chuck in the goal scoring on top of that. Right, so what are the things to consider here with this transfer? Well, first and foremost, it's got to be price. He is about to go into the last year of his contract. That's one thing that needs to be considered. The age of the player needs to be considered. Yes, with a striker, we could get him, if we sign him now, I think he turns 29 late September. You could get 3 years out of him before them legs start to wear down. Maybe 2 years. I know every player's different in that sense. But with that 1 year left, you don't really want to be spending any more, in my opinion, and this is a stretch, than the £35 million mark. I think if you get into the 40s for a player of his age running down that contract, I think that's really stupid money. So Newcastle, as much as it might frustrate fans out there who are seeing us miss out on target after target, have to tread carefully with this one. And another thing to consider is a certain African Cup of Nations. Yes, the thing that we keep taking the mick out of Sunderland for and their recruits and how they're going to be missing a lot come December. He is quite a prominent player for his national team, Congo. They are playing in the African Cup of Nations with the first game on the 23rd of December, I believe. And if we look at where that team could get to, he was in the team of the tournament in 2023 and they got to the 3rd place playoff. So we could lose what might be our only main striking alternative to Alexander Isak for best part of, 6 weeks, 7 weeks? Somebody tell me in the comments. That's got to be a risk, got to be a worry, and something to think about, because we all know how hectic Christmas can be. We've just come on the back of, 3 or 4 Champions League matches as the Christmas period comes in. It's not ideal. So look, this one has a certain feel about it of being a little bit less exciting, a little bit deflating in comparison to a young, upcoming player like Hugo Ekitike. And the sudden bounce over after feeling at the start of the week like we were going to be bringing him in, that probably contributes as well. But what I would say to that is we are looking at a Premier League proven striker. Definitely has potential to get even better in an exciting team like Newcastle, with the likes of Elanga, Murphy, Barnes supplying him, and then that partnership with Alexander Isak where needed as well. But also, I hate to say it, but I would also say if Wissa played for Frankfurt and not Brentford, would we be feeling as deflated as a comparison? I'm not so sure, and that's just the harsh realities of football. If Murphy back in February and March was called Murphinho and we brought him in January with his stats and goals assists, stats, Newcastle fans will be a lot more enthusiastic about Jacob Murphy playing football for Newcastle than what at times they were. That's just the harsh reality. But look, let me know your thoughts on this one. Let's keep an eye on this. Nothing's concrete right now. Things are changing day after day after day. And if Man United are now going to ramp up their interest in Mbeumo, Brentford have got a decision to make. Do they cash in on on Wissa now with his contract running out in a year's time, or do they keep him because they are going to be without two of their biggest assets that did so well for them last season, just as they've brought a new manager in? It's an interesting one. I think the fee here is going to be the key factor in whether Newcastle United bring this player in. Let me know your thoughts on the player. Are you disappointed about Hugo Ekitike, or do you think there are more twists? And if you've stuck around this long, Newcastle fans, do us a favour, get Black White Banter across all social media. Whack that like button now, whether you want Wissa in. 1 like means you want Wissa in. I'm curious how many likes I see in the coming days after this video is posted. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, keep the faith in this ever-changing, exhausting transfer window. Now I'm going for a beer. How are you?